I just wanted to do a little bit about zigs, and basically it's become more and more popular in recent years, zig fishing, and traditionally people are hesitant to do it. I was the same, and used to think, will they actually find it in the middle layers of the water, or what depth shall I do, what's the best bait to use? And it's quite clumsy sometimes if you're using a long hook length to do it, and you know, you can get adjustable ones now, but I thought I'd just show you what I do and also explain that if I was to add up the hours that I've spent behind rods where I'm fishing on the bottom compared with the amount of time I've used zigs, I'd say the zigs have been a damn sight more successful than fishing on the bottom actually, particularly in the last 3 or 4 seasons where I've been using them more and more. And one of the things I'm finding is I've got the confidence to leave the zigs out all night, and quite often I'm actually not putting any spod in or any mix. I'm just fishing them maybe a foot, 2 feet under the surface, middle of the night, and getting takes all the way through the night on difficult waters. I'll show you a few of the hook baits that I use. I'm using Power Zig, which is an Ultima buoyant line, which is ideal for the zig fishing. And it's hollow in nature, so it's got a tendency to lift up. So you can use a very long hook length, up to 14, 15 feet. And because it's got an element of buoyancy about it, you can present really small baits. And this is typically one that I've been catching a lot of fish on. And all it is I've got some Enterprise black foam. It's one of the Enterprise floater baits. And I've got the fluorescent greeny yellow tips, one of the 10mm Immortal boilies, and I've trimmed it and cut it down, so I put the two together. I've got a Corda zig hook, which has got a slightly inturned eye, and that's a size 12, but they're strong as hell, and I've been catching a lot of fish with these. Basically, just as a tip, a lot of people just do a knotless knot and leave it at that. And I've done an example of one that's just like that on a knotless, and you can get the bait hanging a bit awkward and miss takes off the fish. They'll come and grab it and not get the hook properly because it hangs sometimes at a funny angle. So what I'm tending to do, I'll show you. You can do this sort of test and it's falling off my hand if you try and do a palm test. You know, it'll occasionally grip. So you can imagine if they're grabbing at it, it can hang awkwardly. Whereas some of the others, with the shrink tube, it's hanging really straight and true. It's almost, you know, invisible when it's on there. And these tend to grip on the mouth properly, you know, and the hook holds are so much better with it. That's well worth doing. It takes a few seconds to do, a little liner. Right, I suppose in nature, you think that anything that's black and yellow is something to avoid. Well, the carp obviously haven't read the books, because when I've used the black and yellow slivers of foam, again, it's the Enterprise zig foam baits, I've just got the scissors and snipped sections off and made it look like a bee. Whether they actually think it's one of those, I don't know, or whether it's just that it stands out with the contrast. But I've been catching loads of fish on that, and it's been remarkable. It's far too easy to get blinkered and just sit with your rigs on the bottom. Finally, this has caught me so many fish I can't even begin to tell you. If I'm fishing waters where they're up for a mixer or a surface baits, what I'll often do is I'll fish the zig with the smallest lead I can get away with, but I want something that can lift the long hook length. And typically where I was fishing on Kingfisher, the average depth's about 15 feet. So I'll put a couple of pieces of dissolving foam on the rig so I can see it going through the air. And I'm using a trimmed down floating plastic tiger nut. And I've got the scissors and took all the shine off it. So I've just snipped pieces off to get it the size that I want, so it's just like a mixer. And that'll lift a 14, 15 foot hook length indefinitely. And what I'm doing, I'm fishing on the surface, so I'm fishing 2 feet over depth. So you can imagine you've got a massive long hook length, and I'm laying it on the floor and casting it out. And this looks just like a mixer. And what I'm doing is I'm fishing it 2 feet over, and I'm putting a small dust shot just underneath, so that it's not too obvious, the line on the top, so it can move with the wind where it's over depth. But the shot keeps it down so it can just drift naturally. And again, I've had that on the surface over depth. Middle of the night, it's screamed off, and I've had some very, very good fish. Winter as well, I've had them. Even though you're not putting mixers in the winter, it still worked. So that's my take on the baits and how to present the end bit of the zigs. So I hope that does you a little bit of good with your zig fishing.